What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. Great to be with you here, and refreshing for you, refreshing for me, frankly, to be talking about a win. A win is a win is a win, and Syracuse got it tonight at the JMA Wireless Dome, taking down NC State 74-60. So not over yet. Few games to go. Syracuse will travel to Virginia Tech on Saturday. They will head to Dallas after that on March 4th to take on SMU, and then they will close the season at the JMA Wireless Dome against Virginia on March 8th. But it looks like, knock on wood, all the requisite things you should do in this moment, that Syracuse is in the ACC Tournament. They got a huge tie-breaking scenario over NC State. They already hold the tiebreaker over Cal, who was right below them in the ACC standing. So we'll see how things play out here, but Syracuse is feeling much better about its ACC tournament hopes tonight than had it lost to NC State. A bubble game in the Dome before a very sparse crowd, one of the lowest crowds I've ever seen at the JMA Wireless Dome for a basketball game. We will certainly get into that and how Syracuse got this win, and a couple other things on our minds tonight, and certainly our Syracuse Sports Insiders ready to chime in on this one. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you have direct text message access to me anytime on all your thoughts on Syracuse sports, football, basketball, lacrosse, whatever the case may be. We even talking softball this week because the Syracuse softball team is off to a tremendous start this season. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you could text me anytime. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questions you want me to ask Syracuse coaches and players, and just shooting the breeze, talking SU sports. It's just $3.99 a month, but you could try it out free for 2 weeks, and the information is right there on your screen or in the show notes on how you can sign up. So we'll hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders coming up here. But look, we'll start with this. Syracuse led from start to finish. Syracuse kind of bucked all the trends from this year, right? If they have more turnovers than their opponent, specifically in ACC play, where they had done that, I think 12 of 16 times this year, they typically lose the game. So Syracuse was at a low turnover rate for most of the game. They picked up the pace on the turnovers in the second half, where there was a stretch where NC State was pressing, trying to get back in the game. Syracuse had more turnovers than their opponent, still won the game. So that's a rare thing. Syracuse started well. They continued to start well. They led at halftime. NC State did make a run in this game, and you're just kind of always waiting for that other shoe to drop with this team this year. Syracuse at one point had an 18-point lead in the second half. That drops down to 8 points, and you say to yourself, here we go. They're going to find a way to lose this game down the stretch, because that has been a huge issue for this team in ACC play, being outscored, getting outplayed, just not playing well in the second half. Certainly they've had some defensive breakdowns. Adrian Autry said it himself tonight when he was asked about the ACC tournament, when you go back and look at some of the games that Syracuse was in control of and lost control of in the second half. That didn't happen tonight. That didn't happen thanks mostly to JJ Starling. JJ had 17 points in this game. 15 of those 17 points came in the second half. There was a couple of times when NC State was pushing. They got within 8, but JJ had a three-pointer. JJ had a drive. JJ would just answer the bell time after time in the second half. In the first half, it was a collective effort. Eddie Lampkin almost had a double-double in the first half alone. He ends up with yet another double-double tonight. Eddie with 14 points and 15 rebounds. Jair Davis was huge in the paint, and that was a big factor in this game tonight. When you look at the three-point numbers, NC State finished 8 of 27. A bunch of those came late. They did not shoot well from three-point range, just 30% overall. NC State shot 34% overall in this game. Syracuse shot 58%. And one of the reasons that their shooting percentage was so high in this game is look at points in the paint. Syracuse dominated points in the paint, 46-22. We mentioned Eddie Lampkin in the paint. Jair Davis at his best around the basket, 15 points tonight, 5 of 7 from the field. He did hit a three-pointer. 4 of 7 at the free throw line. You'd like to see that be better. But if you're giving Jair Davis 15 points, Eddie Lampkin 14 points, and JJ's getting 17, with a bulk of that, he only hit 1 3-pointer, a bulk of that coming to drives on the basket. Syracuse just had lanes in the paint all night. NC State was not doubling. NC State coming off a win over Wake Forest this past weekend, by the way, but Will Middlebrooks really struggled tonight. in the paint. Eddie Lampkin got the best of that matchup. He picked up 4 fouls. He did not foul out of the game. It looked like he was well on track to do that. There were times they had Middlebrooks and Huntley Hatfield in the paint. Didn't matter. Lampkin won the battles inside. Jair battled inside. JJ got in the paint, and NC State was just helpless to stop Syracuse. NC State had its best three-point shooting night of the season when it beat Wake Forest, as noted over the weekend. They hit 13 threes in that game on Saturday. They hit 8 tonight, but again, a few of those came in garbage time, came late. They were just dreadful shooting the ball tonight. And one of the reasons that Syracuse built up its lead, you look at the total rebounds, Syracuse out-rebounds NC State 38-30. It felt like a whole lot more than that. I think the true story there, because NC State kind of tipped the scales a bit because they got a bunch of offensive rebounds in this game. But look at the defensive rebounds. Syracuse out-rebounds NC State 33-19 in that category. What Syracuse did early and did not blow the lead and did not blow it. They led from start to finish, as we mentioned. NC State would miss a shot, Syracuse would go down the paint and score. NC State would miss a shot, Syracuse right down the floor and scores. And everybody got in on that. I'll tell you what, somebody we've been pretty hard on this year, Jaquan Carlos. Carlos had, what I'd call a fine game. I wouldn't call it a great game, wouldn't call it a bad game. I'd call it a fine game for him. 8 points, 4 of 4 from the field, 2 assists, 35 minutes. He had 4 turnovers, which you don't like to see. But again, a lot of that came late when Syracuse had the lead. It didn't really matter. I don't have a lot of complaints about Carlos in this game. Just looking around the horn a little bit here. I mean, Naheem McLeod gave you 6 quality minutes. I mean, you could have made the argument he could have gave you some minutes in the second half, get Eddie a breather a little bit. Eddie's going to play now, 34 minutes. When Eddie's getting you double-doubles and getting easy buckets in the paint, you just kind of let him cook at that point. But when Naheem came in the first half, he gave you quality minutes. Chris Bell coming off, you forget it because it's a week ago, but he played well against Pitt. He had 7 points tonight, 3 rebounds, 24 minutes, but Chris Bell didn't really hurt you tonight. He had his usual kind of defensive lapses at times, but there was a lot of things that Bell was doing off of the box score, and you don't want Bell doing that. You want Bell in the box score, hitting threes and being an offensive presence in this game. But when JJ is erupting for 15 of 17 points, even with the defensive attention he's getting from NC State, there's an old saying in football, right? And it could be used in other sports, but you take what the defense gives you. In this case, you take what NC State didn't give you, right? They weren't making shots. I mean, even Autry admitted it tonight. So you can make an argument in this game. Did Syracuse win this game or did NC State lose it? I think you can make a strong case that NC State just had a really bad night. But if you're Syracuse, you're just taking advantage of that because there are times when the other team doesn't play well and they kind of drag you down into the Sarlacc pit with you. That wasn't the case with Syracuse. We mentioned it, particularly in the first, because the second half was actually tighter. So Syracuse led at halftime 38-25. They won the second half 36-35. So the second half was a lot. Syracuse always had a comfortable lead, don't get me wrong, but NC State actually made some shots and got into it at least a little bit in the second half. As I noted, they got within 8, but Syracuse, squashed that pretty quickly and maintained its lead down the stretch. But you take what a bad team gives you. And NC State is a bad team. They're in danger of missing the ACC tournament at this point, especially after this loss, which is not going to go over well down on Tobacco Road. Think of what the North Carolina fans and the Wake Forest fans and Duke, all those Tobacco Road traditional ACC programs, they will never let NC State hear the end of that, especially with the ACC tournament being in Charlotte and just how rabid they are about that rivalry and that triangle rivalry and that Tobacco Road rivalry down there. NC State, think of that great tournament run they made last year. They might not even make the ACC tournament. So as bad as things have been at Syracuse, and as much as Syracuse fans have certainly had their complaints about this season, about Autry, I think my colleagues at syracuse.com, frankly, did an amazing job that I think you guys should read. Between Mike Waters' story, and Mike and I did a pod about that, so I would encourage you to check out the pod if you haven't. But Mike wrote an amazing story about the NIL failures that Syracuse had last year. Chris Carlson followed that up. I mean, you want to talk about going from Star Wars to The Empire Strikes Back. Chris Carlson followed that up with a truly well-researched compelling story about, okay, we know Syracuse was bad in the portal. How bad was it? Chris did an excellent job laying that out, as Mike did with his NIL story as well. So, look, I think we know that. But to get the details of it, the why and the how of it, right? That's what we're happy to do for you at syracuse.com. I am so lucky to work with great colleagues that can really put that in perspective for you. So I think that's what everybody's thinking about more than this season, right? But you don't want to be left out of the ACC tournament. Look, Eddie Lampkin was talking to me a little bit after the game, and I said, this team is really honed in now. The ACC tournament, your rallying cry. And Eddie made a good point. He said, I was at Colorado last year. We got a route to the championship game that we weren't expecting. Now, Colorado lost to Oregon in the Big 12 championship game, but they got there. They used that second season and that second opportunity to make a run. This Syracuse team can't make a run. They're just not good enough defensively to make a run in the ACC tournament. They're too inconsistent offensively to make a run in the ACC tournament. All the issues that have plagued Syracuse this year are going to present themselves in the ACC tournament should they make the ACC tournament, which they're well on track to now because this was a big win tonight. This is not a team that can win 2 games in a row in the ACC tournament, let alone 5, and what it's going to take, right? I'd love to be proven wrong on that because it'd make for a hell of a story and kind of rescue what has been certainly a lost season, but they're just too inconsistent. They're not good enough defensively to put together a streak of games. But you want to be there. You do not want to be the team left out, especially with both the men's and women's team in danger of missing the ACC tournament this year. This is the first year that 3 teams get left out because the ACC expanded to 18. They're sticking with the 15-team format, so you just don't want that scarlet letter. So at the very least, maybe Syracuse earned that tonight with how they played and showed that this was one of their more consistent games of the year. Better late than never, I guess, some would say. Some would say, hey, it's late February and you're putting together that kind of game. Elijah Moore was not in the lineup again tonight. Adrian Autry saying he's hopeful he'll be back in the lineup Saturday when Syracuse plays at Virginia Tech. He's been dealing with a toe issue. He's been rehabbing, but he did not dress tonight. Between Elijah Moore's injury, Donnie Freeman's injury, JJ's injury, I don't even think we need to mention anymore because it was a couple months ago. He's been back in the flow, obviously. That didn't really affect things long-term for this team, but to not have your 2-star freshman out there due to injury, it's noteworthy. I don't know how much Elijah Moore, I mean, certainly Syracuse didn't need him tonight. Syracuse, speaking of threes, I didn't even mention their 3-point numbers. 3 of 8. Normally you look at a college basketball game in 2025, you're like, you went 3 of 8 at the 3-point line? What the heck happened to you? They didn't need it tonight. NC State took 27 threes. Syracuse took 8. And you're like, yeah, that tracks. They didn't force it. They didn't need it because they were so dominant in the paint. You take what a bad team gives you. And tonight, NC State gave Syracuse, ole. Take the lane. Have the paint with futile resistance from that defense. As Eddie Lampkin mentioned, they weren't doubling us. We just went in there and killed them, right? So Syracuse needed to win. Remember, they had a week off. They had a week off coming into this game. Could have very easily been rusty. This has been a team that has struggled a lot in the first half this year, and it shows what they did during the week to hone in on this and just get off to a good start. Take what NC State gives you, and, man, they would have heard it from that crowd, and that crowd was, we need to talk about this, okay? So let's start with a positive. Shout out to, I'm not sure which fraternity it is. Let me look that up while we're yapping about it here, but look at this photo. So you had if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. So there's Chancellor Severu taking a picture with a bunch of bananas. So the student section, if it weren't for these bananas, would have been a ghost town. Would have been, frankly, pretty pathetic if these guys didn't stroll in. So they are from, let me see here. I believe my friend Donna DeToda had the name of the fraternity. Give me one sec to find it here, guys. Because, hey, look, you make the effort to come in and Phi Kappa Alpha. Okay, or Pi Kappa Alpha, sorry. I'm having old flashbacks to what's that movie, Revenge of the Nerds, right? Lambda, lambda, lambda. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation for a different day. But if it were not for these bananas, okay, that student section would have been a ghost town. Syracuse announced in the box score attendance at 19,404. In the words of Logan Roy, you are not serious people. 19,404, I get that they inflate attendance. We all understand that it is a announced number. It is, sometimes it's tickets sold. Sometimes it's maybe we counted everybody within a 5-mile radius of the JMA Wireless Dome. That's a joke to put that number in that box score. Because if you were at the Dome tonight, or even if you watched the game on TV, I posted a video on social media showing the crowd right after the national anthem. So we're talking about tip time, right? I checked with 3 sources who have direct knowledge of this. There were about 7,000 people in the building tonight. 7,000 people at or abouts, okay? It certainly wasn't 19,000, even if you kind of, grab the air pump and inflate it a little bit. To put 19,000 people down on that sheet, which no one's going to remember, no one's going to care. It'll still go into their official attendance numbers. They're tracking 5th in the country right now in attendance. They're tracking 3rd overall in cumulative attendance right now. But come on, man. Don't lie to people. Don't BS people. Who did I just show in that picture? The chancellor's there. Don't BS people, man. Don't claim you had 19,000 people at that game. It just shows you where the product's at. I don't think I really need to rehash this. We all know where Syracuse basketball's at right now. But it's still pretty stunning to see essentially an exhibition crowd at an ACC game on a Wednesday night. And I get there's nothing on the line. I get the records. I get everything here, right? And by the way, this is not a criticism of the fan base. It's an observation. That has got to be, if not the lowest crowd I have seen at a Syracuse basketball game, in the top 2 or 3, including exhibition games, including like in the COVID era when they slowly but surely started letting people back in. It was bad. And for the most part, the crowd, it was kind of, like we said, it's kind of a run-of-the-mill game. NC State just kind of gave it to them. The crowd got into it at times. They were very happy at the end, a little bit of a standing ovation, and in a way like, hey, thanks for the win. We appreciate it, because this team was on a 3-game losing streak and had lost, 7 of 9 coming in. So Syracuse fans that did show up tonight, and by the way, weather was perfect, for February 26th. Roads were fine, no bad weather, but the students stayed away. And a lot more people stayed away. A whole lot of people dressed as blue seats in there tonight. So to put 19,404 in the box score, like, come on. What are we doing here? Don't do that. Don't BS people. That bothers me. If you were there, right? But it's just kind of where we're at. But it's also a reminder that you have to make a business decision here. Look, I think Adrian Autry's coming back. I don't think John Wildhack's going to do anything here. I think they give him another season, and there's a lot of pressure on next year to make the tournament and to do well in the portal and all the things we've talked about all year. And that's all people care about now. They have looked over to the beacon over the hill. They've looked to the offseason. They'll watch the last 3 games that we know about and whatever they get in the ACC tournament. Now, remember, the portal opens a little later this year. The portal will open 2 weeks after Selection Sunday. So Syracuse is going to have some time to map this out. Alex Klein, their general manager, might have more pressure on him than anybody in Syracuse sports to construct a roster, to identify talent in the portal. Do you have the money to pay these guys, which Mike Waters and I talked about? I still don't know. He still doesn't know. They didn't have the money last year, as Mike well documented in his story, and I'm not sure they got it this year. We'll see about that. People tend to galvanize a little bit more, to use a word that John Wildhack used in his in the $50 million fundraising campaign that they put out there. You tend to galvanize more when people believe in something. Right now, it's hard to do. It's hard to galvanize people to give you millions of dollars to go find talent in the portal. Maybe they'll be able to. We shall see. But I think that's all people care about now. Let's just get through the season here. 3 more games, maybe a 4th in the ACC tournament, and let's reconstruct this thing. Let's rebuild this thing. Let's get on with it here, right? I tweeted after their loss last week to Pitt, like, even if you get an ACC tournament bid, just turn it down and let's get it over with. I was kidding. I was, being snarky Brent on Twitter, but there's also some truth in that. There's always a little truth in comedy. There's always a little truth in snark. And I think that's just kind of where people are at. I think they're happy to see a win. They're happy to see this team put together a complete game. They're happy to just not have that dreaded feeling of, oh, God. Like if they had lost that 18-point lead, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. So it's more relief than anything. I think NC State lost the game more than Syracuse won it, frankly, but you got to take those. You got to take those, man, especially if you're Syracuse with the way things have gone. But, yeah, there was probably 7,000 people in the building. And if I'm dead wrong, there was 8, right? So that's kind of where we're at. Let's just get this over with, hit the reset button, whatever that reset button may be, and look forward to next year, right? Let's hear what our Syracuse Sports Insiders had to say about this one. You guys were texting all night as usual. Great stuff from Glenn B., who leads us off, saying, I like the ball movement on offense and not as many turnovers as we usually see. Yeah, Syracuse with just 10 turnovers tonight, at least so far. Still don't like Red's method of subbing, but is way different than from how Jim Boeheim subbed, as Glenn put it there. Michael S. says the key today was everyone contributed in the first half with JJ Cold, one of the more complete wins of the year, and then JJ got back to his go-to guy role in the second half with Eddie Lampkin, certainly. And I like how Jair Davis kind of jump-started this team in both halves and then was just kind of there in the paint when needed. Bruce D. says, good win, should have secured an ACC tournament bid, but boy, who would have thought Syracuse struggling to make the ACC tournament? How the mighty have fallen. Hopefully they have the money to succeed. Literally the $1 million plus question. Matt S. says, regardless of how tough this season has been to watch, we're running out of games. This was a much-needed win for many reasons. From Lacey, who says, I'm glad to see the Orange successful tonight, but I'm sorry it took a game against such an awful team to make it happen. Now, I didn't include all of Lacey's text, but she also said that she has what she deemed living room TED Talks. She has a lot of living room TED Talks when it comes to the play of Chris Bell. Shout out to Brian. Is he awake? Brian, wake up. Gabe W. says, couple of points, Brent. 1, usually Syracuse came out flat after a week off. This was the opposite. They had a spark. 2, where's this team been all year? And 3, how you feeling about the ACC tournament chances? If you're talking about their chances to make it, Gabe, I'm feeling a lot better tonight because you needed this win. Now you got the tiebreaker over NC State. You got the tiebreaker over Cal. So let's just look at the ACC standings. Miami's 2-15. They're out. NC State is 4-13 now with this loss. Boston College 4-12. Syracuse has the tiebreaker over them if it came to that. Cal 5-11. Syracuse has the tiebreaker over them. Syracuse and Notre Dame at 6-11. So if the season ended today, BC, NC State, Miami out. Syracuse looks to be in short of some sort of catastrophe. Not entirely out of the picture. Nobody's grabbing it's not in ink, it's in pencil at this point, but this was big for them to get this win, as sad as that is to say, that that's what they were playing for tonight on the ACC tournament bubble. How am I feeling about their chances in the ACC tournament? Not good. How does this team string together 2 or 3 wins when they can't play defense consistently? They can't shoot the 3 consistently. They didn't need to tonight, but you're going to need to. In tournament play, they have poor guard play. You need great guard play to make a run in the tournament. Like, it's just all the ingredients are not there. Ed P. says this was probably one of their better all-around performances of the season. Of course, the quality of the opponent certainly has to factor into Cuse looking pretty good tonight. It does. You got to be fair. NC State, it was interesting because they played so well against Wake Forest, hitting 13 threes, but Wake Forest didn't play well themselves. So what team was going to come in tonight? Syracuse had the worst turnover margin in the ACC coming in. NC State had a good turnover margin, but as it turned out, they're just terrible in the paint. And there's a reason they're at the bottom of the league too, right? We saw that tonight. That's the team we saw tonight. What we saw on Saturday in their win over Wake was kind of the anomaly. What we saw tonight was the true NC State. as my good friend Mark Frank said, we found a team worse than us, right? Yeah, you'll take it, man. You'll take it. So it's a win in the books. It, I think, will put Syracuse in the ACC tournament. It was an important win there. If that's important to you, because you just, like I said, you don't want the Scarlet Letter of the team being left out, but still a lot of things to be sorted out. And I think that's more prominently on the minds of Syracuse basketball fans. Next season, the beacon over the hill. What are you doing in the portal? Which is tough to figure out because we don't know who's in the portal right now. That's Alex Klein's job. He better have a sense in talking to agents and talking to people that know who they should target when that thing opens, who they can reasonably reach out to. And that's the thing. How much money are you going to have to spend, as Mike and I were talking about on our pod the other day? Are you going to have to moneyball this thing in a way? Suzanne, get me Dombrowski on the phone, right? I love Moneyball. What a movie. What a whole different pod for a different day. I think Moneyball's the best baseball movie ever made. Yeah, I just said it. You could Field of Dreams me all day. Yep. I'm hearing them all. The Natural. Yep. Just keep throwing them at me. It's Moneyball. It's the best baseball movie ever made. But we'll have that discussion another time. But is Syracuse going to do that? Is it going to be Alex Klein sitting in a room with a bunch of people saying a bunch of names and everybody's groaning? Like, what? That guy would know. We cannot replace Giambi, but we can replace him in the aggregate. Is that what Syracuse is going to have to do? Or can they take a swing or two at some big guys? I don't know. I don't know what their budget is. I think they have more money. I certainly hope they have more money. When the NCAA house settlement goes through as anticipated, they're going to have more money from that. So I think we could safely say they're going to have more money to spend in the portal than they did a year ago, right? When you're wrangling Eddie Lampkin for about $500-600K, you're getting, I mean, they got in a bidding war for Dakota LeFew and lost. And Dakota LeFew went to Georgia, and he hasn't really set the world on fire there. So sometimes it's better to kind of move on from some, what's that? Another baseball movie reference. What's that line from Major League? He's, oh man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. What is it? He's not, when they're talking about the guy that's on the big contract, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Because he's only high priced, right? He's not a high priced talent because he's only high priced, right? Roger Dorn, right? Got the big contract, but didn't necessarily mean that Roger Dorn was a high priced talent. He's only high priced. There we go. It came back to me. Sorry, it's late. But that's what Syracuse is dealing with. There's a lot of guys in the portal that they may have a high price. Doesn't mean they're high priced talent. So they might be able to scrap up a few Moneyball guys that are good players. They need a point guard. They need a center. They need somebody that can focus on defense because this team is poor defensively. Sadiq White, who's one of their top 40 recruits coming in, is a good defender. He's 6'9", lengthy, kind of reminds me of Hakeem Warwick. So you have somebody who can play and wants to play defense, which is good. And you got to do it in a flash, right? The portal opens and let the games begin because everybody's looking, right? It's going to be fascinating. That's what people are mostly thinking about. But there are, at the very least, 3 games to go. So we will be here for most of those. Programming note before we step aside for the night. Just so you guys know, there is no post-game show Saturday after Syracuse takes on Virginia Tech. No post-game show Saturday. SU plays at noon, and then the lacrosse team plays at 2. And Uncle Brent's going right from basketball into lacrosse coverage. So unfortunately, I won't be able to do a post-game show on Saturday. So just so you guys know, Saturday afternoon, no post-game show. I will tell you this, though. Tomorrow, depending on when you're watching or listening to this, Thursday afternoon, live pod. We've been doing live pods Thursday afternoons right around 3 o'clock or so Eastern time. And tomorrow, we are going to introduce you to our new football beat reporter, Javon Edmonds. I'm looking forward to talking ball with him. I'm looking forward to you guys getting to meet him and learn all about him and what it's been like. He's been here just a short time, but what's it been like for him here in Syracuse? He talked to Fran Brown this week. Get some nuggets from that conversation and get to know our new beat reporter for football. All right, so Javon's going to join me tomorrow, and certainly some feedback from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and we'll have another live edition of Syracuse Sports on Thursday. So no post-game show on Saturday, but we got a live pod for you. Those of you that are fans, by the way, of the Axe Brent Anything pods, just stay tuned, friends. Coming soon. Get those questions ready. Give you a little head start. Start thinking about those Axe Brent Anything questions. Because we got one of those pods coming soon. A couple other things I'm cooking up for you, too, that I think you're going to enjoy. But just in the near future, live pod Thursday, 3 o'clock, which will be here on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You can watch on demand anytime you want once it's over. But no post-game show on Saturday, okay? Just so you guys know. It's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. Hey, Syracuse won. We'll take it. 74-60, your final over NC State. We will talk to you next time here. Thanks for hanging, guys, and we will talk to you next time.